Analyst Terry Sullivan is here with us tonight to break down exactly what happened in court, get his analysis on all of this. How you doing, Terry?
Good, Lourdes. How are you?
I am great. All right, so let's talk about this closing argument and sort of how it went. We heard Marcella talk about the content, but let's talk performance and maybe which of these may have been more compelling for the jurors.
That is the million-dollar question. It's impossible to determine. The people that I've talked to who were there tell me that they really can't tell either. You know, they're different sorts. The prosecution has to come out there. They get two shots at it. Don't forget, they get to start out. And really, the start out is something. The opening is one that just really details all of the facts. And I think that state's attorney, I think his last name is Christopher Koch. And he seemed to have done just a great job on bringing everything out that he needed to bring out. And then really to tell the jury that when you're dealing with hearsay evidence, although he didn't say it quite that way, you know, this is circumstantial evidence. This is something that you need to put together, and you need to combine it, and you need to use your common sense. And he used the term common sense, because that's what you have to get a jury to do in order to hook onto this. When you get to the defense, and I think Mr. Glasgow did the same thing in the end, the other state's attorney. But Joe Lopez came on with a completely different style, as we expected.
That's why they call him the Shark, right?
That's why he calls himself the Shark. But he's a good lawyer, and he came through there with some flying colors. I question, though, with 5 women on this jury, whether or not you really do want to attack one woman who's surely dead and another one who may be dead in Stacey Peterson by saying that she was actually the shark by wanting to get a better divorce settlement, that is Stacey, and calling Kathleen Savio a liar when she never even testified, but calling her a liar for not telling anybody else that she hid a knife under her bed. I find those to be little things
how effective that may have been.
Yes, and especially with the 5 women on the jury. Although, let me point out, first of all, please, that in our profession, which is not an art, it is so easy to be a Monday morning quarterback.
Let's talk about the lack of evidence, and you mentioned this, you know, that the prosecution has to bring this point home of common sense, common sense. There is this lack of evidence where there is no DNA, no fingerprints, and there's almost that CSI factor that jurors look for in making a decision. So my question to you is, can they come up with a guilty verdict without the CSI factor, without the type of information that they're used to normally getting?
Well, they certainly can. And Mr. Glasgow, I think, did a fine job in finally finishing up when the state gets his last shot, in saying that you had scientific evidence. He was calling it scientific evidence. You know, the doctors who came in and said that it was not an accident on his side.
And then on the defense, they're saying it is.
Exactly.
So it's the battle of the experts almost.
Well, it is and it isn't. You know, I think maybe we'll find out that the experts were kind of thrown away by the time the jury gets back to them, that they probably will be neutralized with each other. And then what do you have? You have the circumstantial evidence. And that could help the state. The other side of the coin is, when you have 12 people there, can you find any one person who isn't going to hold out and say, I'm not going to convict a guy and put him away for the rest of his life, no matter whether we don't like him or not, unless I have more evidence. And what you're talking about, the CSI stuff.
Yeah, but doesn't this issue of them wearing the same clothing for days on end, the same colors, the same jerseys, doesn't that almost give you the impression that this is a unified jury, that perhaps they're all thinking in the same direction or thinking of the same outcome?
It does and it doesn't. You know, you could come to that conclusion. You could come to another conclusion that they were just being happy back there. You know, they're not supposed to talk about the case and they're warned about that every day, at least twice a day by the judge. So if they weren't doing that, perhaps they were just wanting to be kind of cool since they knew they were going to be on TV or something like that. But I think one of the most important things that we have to remember, because it was brought up by Mr. Glasgow at least 3 times in his rebuttal argument today. Stacey Peterson did this. Stacey Peterson did that. Stacey Peterson talked to her priest, and Stacey Peterson made these statements that she killed him. Stacey Peterson coming up, as I said once before, you know, Stacey Peterson is in their minds, you know, just like the song "You Were Always on My Mind."
Not good for the defense.
That is something that the defense was trying to keep out, and now we're going to see what kind of an effect it has.
Thank you so much, Terry Sullivan.
My pleasure.
Our legal